I cannot tell you how shocked I am about what I'm about to say. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Silver and Sensational. It is the I, as in Lois Mills, welcoming you to another episode while I am living in Paris. And before I begin today, let me thank you for the extraordinary outpouring of support and love for the Dior episode. You know, when I love something and I could share it with people that also love it, it gives me great joy. So the comments, I hope they keep coming. It was just such a wonderful, wonderful reaction to the episode. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And most people want me to do more of those. And the way I can actually do it is by memberships. And if you go in the description box, you can see how easy it is to become a member, and it would be something I think you would really enjoy. So take a look and see, think about it if you must, but it would really help support my being able to do more of these. In the meantime, today's episode is going to be Los Angeles versus Paris. Well, what's there to say? It's pretty major.
I recognize that they're two completely different sides.
There's a pretty major difference between the two. Of course, you know, the landscape alone, Paris is actually quite small from end to end, whereas as we know, Los Angeles is very spread out from one end to the other. And of course, you know, there's the architecture, which is obvious. That's an obvious thing. But what I'm about to tell you are things that really stand out to me is being different. Some are kind of major and some are petty, but let me get right to it. So firstly, being in Los Angeles, you are always in your car. And in Paris, you do a lot of walking, or you use public transportation. When you do some of these turnabouts, I have to tell you, you know, there is no way you want to be driving, but it doesn't make sense to have a car here. And so I walk pretty much anything that's anywhere within 2 miles, I will walk to. And also if I don't have to carry any kind of bags. And, you know, one of the things that I've mentioned before is one of those shopping caddies. That was one of the first items I purchased. I knew I'd become a Parisian, quote, quote, when I took one of those that I used to always think old people did, you know, but in Paris, I mean, how am I going to bring bottles of water home? So you do walk a great deal. You know, the walking's very pleasant because there's always so much to see, and it's different than just seeing the same boring things all the time. You know, I take different streets to where I'm going. I really am enjoying the walking. That is when my back isn't bothering me.
I just love walking wherever I want. Don't you?
I never thought I would not have a dryer, a clothes dryer, but very few apartments come equipped with the dryer. They may have a washing machine, and they don't even have a combo washer dryer. But people here use drying racks. And so you wash your clothes, you put your drying rack out, and then you put your clothes on the drying rack. And you don't have a dryer. I found this very odd because I've always had a dryer. And even though I did have a drying rack that I put outside when I lived in Los Angeles in my own home, because I liked putting sheets out, so I had the smell of fresh, well, I don't know how fresh the air is in Los Angeles, but to have fresh air dried sheets. At any rate, I thought that was quite unusual. The other thing I see, not the most attractive thing, but on some main streets, they have these huge bins. They're big black bins that for some reason, I can't tell you why, they seem to meld into the environment And yet they're big and ugly. And what are they? They're recycling bins. I see people there with bags of bottles or newspapers or whatever, and they go and they stick this stuff in there. And then when you walk in the grocery markets, they've got bins for light bulbs and bins for batteries. It's not on certain days, but rather it's always there.
Have this obsession with labeling everything?
Another thing is that every morning, now this can be annoying because they come by early in the morning. So when you're in an apartment building, they don't all have those big commercial kinds of bins. Some of them are just basically like you would have for a single home, a recycling for bottles, one for paper, one for garbage. And these services come by and they go into the lobbies and they take these and they put them out on the sidewalk. Then the garbage people come through, and believe me, they make a racket, and it's at 6:30 in the morning. They dump the garbage, then that same service comes back, and then they bring those back in the house. In the meantime, the huge trucks are coming by with water hoses, and they're hosing down the streets and the sidewalks. And then after the water hose trucks comes the trucks with the brushes where they're cleaning the streets. Well, before COVID, they actually cleaned streets in LA once a week. But during COVID, because so many people weren't working and you had nowhere to park your car because, you had to be off street certain hours of the day, they sort of let up on such a strict schedule of cleaning streets. And then after COVID, they decided to save money. Instead of cleaning streets every week, they went to every other week. So this is every single day. And another thing that I'll say, which is not necessarily the difference, but they've become more like Los Angeles, is years ago, they had the propensity of having their dogs poop on the sidewalk, and then they would just continue on. And I mean, I know of a friend who took a slide in the dog poop, went down and slid in it. I mean, it rains and it spreads. But one thing I've noticed is it's very rare now to see dog poop on sidewalks. And they're actually, like these just small gardens. They will have low rails and with signs to not let your dog go in there. And I do see people with pooper bags picking dog poop up. So it's every now and again I'll see something on a sidewalk, but not like it used to be. So they've become more Angelino'd in that regard. Let me think. The other thing. All right, I've got a note here, so hold on just a second. How could I forget this? The cigarettes and the cigars. But the cigarettes, they cannot smoke inside a restaurant, but on the sidewalk cafes, they can smoke. And I swear to you, I sit there and say, why did I even give smoking up when I did? Because the effects of smoke are affecting me here. I was at this very nice Italian restaurant. It was really a very good food, elegant restaurant. And this man was smoking a cigar. It was a covered patio. So technically, it was outside, but I mean, a cigar while you're eating just grosses you out.
You should give up smoking. Cigarettes are very bad for your chest.
Mr. Osato believes in a healthy chest.
Really?
I think they're trying to pass a law now that will disallow people within a certain number of feet of a dining establishment to smoke. I remember when they passed the law that people could not smoke in Parisian restaurants. I did not think this would ever fly. And initially, there'd be signs in the window that this is a restaurant that allows its patrons to smoke. So if you got there and you didn't want to be where there was cigarette smoke, you just didn't even go in the restaurant, because if you went in, you had no right to complain. But that's a lot of years ago. So now smoking inside anywhere now is verboten. But, this is a sidewalk cafe city. So it doesn't really matter, because you get in, I can tell. I never thought I would say this, because when I did smoke, I never smelled smoke. I didn't smell it on my clothes. I mean, everybody else did, but I didn't. And if I get in a cab now and that taxi driver has had a cigarette, even if it's outside his taxi, I know it. And that is a problem. Am I going to jump out of the cab? No, because it's allowed here. So it's something I have to adjust to. Another thing that's really interesting is, it's really a requirement, and it's a nice thing to do. As you enter a bakery, anywhere, you see somebody it's always bonjour, 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 everybody, bonjour, madame, bonjour, monsieur. And when you leave, au revoir, bon journée. You could do this in a taxi cab, you do it everywhere. And then I notice, you know what, you don't say this to your neighbors. People with their neighbors are very, you barely acknowledge that they actually live in the same building. But with everywhere else, you say bonjour and merci and bon journée or whatever, au revoir. The little niceties are really expected, and it's a pleasure. At least when you walk into a shop or at the produce market or you're at the checkout in a grocery market, and they're still saying bonjour to every single person that walks through, you do feel sort of a community feeling. And I think that's a very nice thing. But I also noticed that they're not particularly friendly with the people that live in their buildings. So it's sort of a mixed up sort of thing, which reminds me of apartments. Well, this is something Americans in general, I think, have to get used to. The apartments in Paris they're pretty small, and closet space is at a premium. Actually, I think I've mentioned before that because the closet space was so limited, I wasn't able. I mean, they were packed and ready to ship, but I wasn't able to ship the cartons of clothes and shoes and purses that I was going to have here because there was no place to put them. Closets are really tiny. And the apartments themselves are tiny. Something that's different is many apartments have a separate room where a toilet is. So you may have a tub, shower, sink, but the WC itself is in a separate room. When looking for apartments, I always made a case about having a small sink. And believe me, when I say small, I do mean minuscule sink, but at least a sink there to wash your hands. Often those don't exist. There's the WC and a door. Now, anyone who has visited Paris, you're not spending actually a lot of money for a hotel room. You will find the hotel rooms to be very, very small. If you go to 5-star hotels, you're going to, of course, spend the money. You will get more room. But even, I stayed in one in the Marais, and I recently saw someone do a YouTube on it, on that particular hotel, but they were doing the most major suite in the hotel. But they had to change our room 3 times because the bed went from end to end. There was not even a spot for a nightstand. So, and the apartments are kind of the same, where they are very small, and you really get used to the idea. At first I was, oh no, I can't. Oh no. My apartments, my houses, they always had space, or there was a balcony, or there was something, there was space. I've learned to live with less space. And again, like with living with less clothing and stuff, I rather enjoy it. Now, this is just, I cannot tell you how shocked I am about what I'm about to say. So, I certainly get homesick sometimes for some ordinary stuff, ordinary food that I would indulge in, a couple, 3, 4 times a year. One of them is a Chicago hot dog, which I used to go to Carney's on Sunset Boulevard because he was the only one that understood a Chicago hot dog. And I'd be kind of upset with John that he never had sport peppers, but he did have the bright green relish and the pickle. And anyway, I was walking by Schwartz's Deli, little tiny one here, in the 6th, and I see a hot dog. Now, I already know I can see the hot dog's on a grill. It's not steamed. The bun isn't steamed, but I got my taste buds going thinking about it. And a couple days later, I went back. And what they offer on a hot dog is, let's see, I think mustard, ketchup, and onions, but it's, crispy onions like you get out of a can. I said, I just want mustard. And by the way, do you have relish? He said, yes. Well, the hot dog was €5. So when I checked out, he said €7.50. I said, the hot dog is €5. He said, but you asked for relish. I said, let me understand this. The hot dog is $5 and a tablespoon of the relish is 50% of it. He said, yes. Well, should I have said, eat it yourself? No, I just made a mental note. Forget your urge for a hot dog. It's not a hot dog anyway, like I know a hot dog to be. And that is an outrage to charge 50% of a hot dog for a tablespoon of pickle relish, which wasn't even bright green, but it was good. So earlier in the week, I had to wait home for a DHL package. I could not leave because they needed a signature and they had already tied it up in customs for 2 days. So I have a little sort of hamburger spot. They do hamburgers, chicken, fried chicken sandwiches, stuff like that. And I could keep an eye on the street for the DHL truck. So I went in and I ordered a burger to take back up to my apartment. And their burger or cheeseburger comes with, of course, the cheese. And they put on ketchup, special sauce, lettuce, tomatoes, onions. So I said, I just want mustard and ketchup and pickles. Sign €7.50. And she said, €9.50. I said, what's €7.50? She said, well, you asked for pickles. I said, okay, but I didn't take the lettuce, the tomato, the onion, the special sauce. So if some Parisian out there or somebody else knows why they're obsessed with charging, I mean, they're not cornichons, they're sweet pickles, hamburger, dill pickles. I don't understand why for €2.50 for relish or 3 little pickle slices. I don't understand it. I wish, she just looked, yeah, you didn't take it. That's your problem, But anyway, all in all, there's a difference in culture. In the month of May, they had 3 holidays that they shut down. And because these 3 holidays happened to land on Thursdays, everything, the people took off. So if you wanted any service done, you were pretty much out of luck because they used that opportunity to have a 4-day weekend, but things shut down. There was a May Day and then it was May 15th. I think that's some kind of religious holiday. Around the 28th of May or something is a bank holiday. So things do shut down. And the philosophy is different. And this again is more American, we work a lot and our life becomes secondary to work life, our home life, personal life, for the most part. I mean, there are, of course, who feel differently. But in Paris, it's more important for them to have a good life which for them means, eating well, enjoying parks, taking walks, sitting on the sidewalk, enjoying an espresso or a glass of wine, watching people go by. The pace is much, much slower and with a greater appreciation of really just living life. Things that are also very different is this goes in the category of the pickles. I thought, maybe I should have more keys made. So in the market that's nearby, there's a man that makes keys. And I said, I think I'd like 3 of these keys done. He said, $120. I said, 40 or 120 euros. I keep using dollars. Sorry. I said, 40 euros a key? And he said, no, madame, 120 euros each key. Well, I was like, what? This is $3 at the little kiosk over by the Grove. Are you joking me? But then a friend of mine here said, well, that's not bad because the key to my apartment is $300. See, the French are very, very proud of their security and their lock system. I mean, the locks on this door, when you lock your door, there's a rod that goes through the door that punctures and the hole in the floor. So I mean, it's a big deal when you do, and the other thing you have to be aware of is the doors always lock behind you. So, well, on my door, you can turn the handle down, but it doesn't really do anything. You need to open the door with the key for it to unbolt the double bolt. So, I mean, it's really a very, very different kind of existence here. These are just some of the things that I notice. I think, what can I say? Is it hard? No. Is it bad? No. It's simply different. And I'm learning with each day, what few extra words here and there. And I will say, as I've said many, many times in our episodes, that I find French people have been extremely kind to me. I fell last Sunday morning walking with Jackie early in the morning by Saint-Sulpice, and a young woman came immediately to take Jackie and to help me up and didn't want to leave till she was certain that I was okay. And I mean, just generally speaking, I find the people to be very, very kind. The other day, I popped into a shop with Jackie, which is always easy when you have, a dog. People make a fuss over it. And the question, are you visiting? No, I live here. Oh, really? What made you move? Blah, blah, blah. You have friends here? I said, no, actually, I don't know anyone. Oh, please leave your number. I'm here all the time. Leave your number with the ladies and we can go for coffee. So, I mean, there's a nicety of people here and that's a wonderful thing. I was in Los Angeles 26 years, and I think for anyone who's lived in Los Angeles, they can, unless you were born and raised there, if you move from somewhere else, if they were going to be completely honest, they'd say it's a very tough city to make friends. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, we're always in our cars and it's just harder. I always found it very difficult to make friends in Los Angeles. You can know a lot of people, but not necessarily the easiest place to make friends. So on that note, let me say once again, our routine. Subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell so you know when we drop our next episode. And of course, share us with your family and friends. And do go down into that description box. Take a look at joining as a member. And there's a direct link to our blog, which I think you really will enjoy. It's a quick read and there's always something. I have a recipe on there. I've done some favorites from Amazon. Take a look, see. And in the meantime, I wish you all well and I look forward to seeing you once again. And I thank you immensely for your continued support. You have no idea how much that means to me. So take care of yourselves and bye now.